to Mysterious Universe, Season 35, Episode 9. Today we're going to be talking about, well, I don't want to say the same thing, but a little bit of time slippage through a different lens, but this is from our good old buddy, old pal, Dirk Gillabel from a couple shows ago. I think it was the last extension, so this will be the free feed's first introduction to Mr. Dirk here.
Yes, there's more time slips that you did?
Yeah, it's more time slips, but he also kind of ties it into the Akashic records, and so we'll figure it out as we go here. But again, another random PDF from the archive that I dug up, and I'm really liking the stories that he collects. And yes, some of them are from Reddit or podcast interviews and things like that, but it's still interesting. And if they're presented as a true story, then we will cover it.
Yeah.
Not all of Reddit is terrible. Most of Reddit is awful, from what I hear.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not there.
Before we get started, though, I'm Joe Hodgson, and joining me, of course, is Brandon Thomas.
Yeah, I do. G'day, mate. Everything well in your world?
Oh, thanks for doing a quick Aussie accent. I know there's a lot of people that missed that, and we should try that.
I don't even think about it, honestly. It's subconscious. Australia has been in my blood for a long time. It's just been one of these odd synchronicities, just me personally. And then Mary and I's relationship has a lot of Australia to it. And then all of a sudden, here we are, working with an Australian company. It's just very interesting how all the synchronicities. And I've been to Australia, had nothing to do with Ben and Aaron. So again, it's an odd thing. So Australian accents for me, I pop them out like Scottish accents. It's like Tourette's, honestly. So I'm not even conscious of it. Thanks for telling me I did one.
I did want to mention too before we get going that I started a TikTok for Mysterious Universe just to put little show clips up on there.
Okay.
So if that's your thing, you can follow us on TikTok as well as all the other socials: Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Didn't even know what the hell that was, but Instagram was like, "You want to be on this?" I'm like, "Do I? Okay." So
thank you for soldiering that for us, man, because I just have no fucking interest in social media. Thank you so much for soldiering this. I would, because it's part of the job if you didn't want to, but you stepped up, and I really appreciate you for that.
It's a real post and ghost situation I do with
you.
the show pages. I just throw the promos up there and then get out.
Yeah,
it's a garbage fire most of the time, especially Facebook. Holy hell, man!
Oh, it's just sad.
Garbage.
And that's why I'm not there. And that's the thing, is that it's so just removed from my priorities that it's fascinating. But again, it's part of the gig, and we appreciate your service, sir. Thank you.
Well, no problem. I was thinking too about for the clips for the show, if anybody's interested and you're good at doing that type of thing, I'm going to outsource that job. Anybody pull clips from the shows, anything you think is interesting or funny or whatever, and send them to me, joe@mysteriousuniverse.org, or you can send them to Brandon too. And we'll put those out on the socials, because it actually takes more time than you'd think to pull a good clip and make it a decent thing. And people's attention spans are so short that you have to try to find a clip that captures what you're talking about in 20 seconds or less. Otherwise, nobody's watching it. It's pretty crazy like that.
And again, it's just that sort of, do I want to throw my, I guess, lure in that water is what I'll say, because that's what it feels like. You're fishing for sort of attention. What I like about it's just kind of looking at it like we're letting folks know, look, we put something new out. Here's a little sample of it. We got a lot of cool shit going on. Don't spend too much time on this social media stuff and go other places. It's sort of our maybe message to all that stuff. Just choose your distractions wisely, guys.
Yes. Do have distractions. That's good, but choose wisely.
Yes.
Maybe put it towards creating something instead of consuming.
And especially, maybe temper that with a time limit. I know folks that'll set a time limit of 15 minutes a day to get on that thing, check messages, maybe surf a little bit, and then they've gotten their fix and they're out. And maybe that's a great mindfulness practice.
Oh yeah, there's whole apps that lock your certain apps for parts of the day, or only let you on for from 6 to 6:30 at night or something like that.
And I'm not an abstinence guy. Like, fucking live your lives, guys. You know what I mean? I'll have a Dr. Pepper every now and then, as wild as that sounds. But live your life, because it's about mental fortitude. But also, be aware of what that is.
You're going to get hate mail for that. Dr. Pepper. There's so many anti-Dr. Pepper people. It's what it is, guys. If I'm going to have a soda or a Coke, as we call it in the South, we don't say pop or whatever. We just say a Coke. But what kind of Coke? Well, I want a Dr. Pepper. That's the way. That's a Midwest thing. A pop.
I think so. Yeah.
Give me a pop, man. All right, so we're going to get into this. And again, this is not a book I can link to unless it's part of a book, but it's PDF. So if you want it, if you want the whole thing, I can send it to you. Otherwise, we'll just link to the sites that I linked to last time that he's apparently associated with, our buddy Dirk Gillabel. So he opens in this PDF, he opens with the idea of accidentally viewing of past scenes. And this goes into, and it's not going to be like full crystal shop right out the gate, but it does get weird fast.
Okay.
And so every once in a while, and by that I mean rarely, but often enough to notice a pattern, perfectly normal people report something unsettling. And not while meditating or on drugs. They're not trying to astral project or summon an entity or anything like that. They're just doing normal things, walking, driving, sightseeing, just killing time. And then without warning, the world slides sideways, and not metaphorically, literally.
Which, is there a quantified direction? Like it goes from the left to the right, like a swipe on a video?
I think it's just an easiest way to look at what he's trying to get at with this. It's just something shifts in general. Could be left, right, literally. Up, down.
Okay, just for clarity, thank you.
Just like, standing on a regular modern street or in a building or in a patch of woods, and for a few seconds, maybe a minute, the place is no longer now. It's then. Another era, maybe another century. And like we've talked about before, it's not fuzzy or dreamlike. It's this sharp, realer than real thing that you hear reported from NDEs or even from, DMT trips where we saw colors we never saw before. It seemed more real than your waking life. And
we carried things to the counter because they were such a good deal and couldn't pay for them. We touched objects, interacted with folks of that time, had credit cards and were laughed out of the building.
And it's things like hearing sounds that don't belong, like the horses and carts or maybe crowds or languages they don't understand, smelling things that you wouldn't normally smell in that environment, like smoke or damp wood, old fabric or that hospital smell, that like antiseptic.
Mothball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Other things like seeing clothing styles that you've only seen in paintings or old photos, just random stuff like that. Or sometimes you see people who may or may not see them back. And we went over that with the time slip thing, the 3 different types. I think it was 3 different types, but where the people in the time slip notice you noticing them.
That's right.
Yeah. But then just as abruptly as it starts, it's gone. Like someone just shut the door on it and it's just over now. And Dirk's angle on this, and he's really clear that this is not the only possible explanation, but is that these moments, they might be accidental tune-ins or something traditionally called, or to something traditionally called the Akashic Records. And that term makes your eyes glaze over, just hang out. He's not saying there's a literal cosmic library floating around somewhere with leather-bound volumes, labeled Venice 1552. Even though that would be cool.
God, it'd be so cool. Columns and the white granite everywhere. You could fly through the thing. Oh,
yeah, uneditable. So you can go see the original.
It would be proper text. Actually, what happened? Fascinating.
Actually learn stuff.
Whoa.
And he goes out of his way to say that when people describe it like that, it's probably just the human mind putting a familiar image on something that's way stranger and harder to grasp. So it's an easy way to, picture it.
Mm-hmm.
The way he comes at it, though, is more like reality might be sitting inside an informational field that records everything, every event, thought, emotion, action, and not symbolically, but energetically. So an energetic record. And that field isn't somewhere else. It's everywhere, layered right on top of this physical world. Like we said, kind of sideways, shifted or out of phase, like we say so many times.
Yeah, yeah.
So normally most people are locked into the present moment like a radio stuck on one station. Mm-hmm. Usually a bad station. Terrible, right?
It's country, but not even good country,
Yeah. Yeah, it's Brad Paisley. Like,
oh God, fucking achy breaky heart. Yeah.
But under very specific conditions, such as maybe emotional stress or location-based anomalies, or just cosmic bad luck, the signal slips. And the really creepy part is it's not always one way. So sometimes when people slip into these past scenes, they experience something that feels less like watching a recording and more like stepping into someone else's body. Kind of like when you have those weird dreams, where you feel like, I'm me, but this isn't me.
This isn't my wrist. Yeah.
Like seeing through their eyes type of thing, standing where they stood, wearing what they wore, and importantly, especially in a dream sense, feeling what they felt.
Oh, so you get to feel the enchiladas they had the night before they shouldn't have. The grunt.
Yeah. Oh, oof. Massive GI distress. I didn't do that to myself.
In the outhouse, too. We get a breeze going in there. The smells are just realistic.
Why do these experiences have to be that real? Can you leave the smells out of it?
Can I tailor this a little bit?
This brings up the obvious question. So if it's just a recording or the stone tape idea, then why does it react? So I thought that too. I thought if it's reacting to you, then it can't just be this replaying of an event. And a lot of times they don't. The stone tape ones are more like in war areas, say like Gettysburg. Yep. You'll see like a Confederate soldier walking by, but it like loops, and it seems to be more of a recording where it's just doing the same thing over and over again. So
that's more of a type 1 where they kind of ignore you. They don't acknowledge you. They're just on this repetitive loop. It's just witnessed by you. And that could be what actual time is for other entities, is us sort of just meandering through our days. It's type 1 for them because we can't see them. So they feel like we don't interact with them, but they can see everything we're doing. That's interesting. Yeah. This is fascinating about the loop stuff, because now if it's interactable, is that either a different reality? Is it not a reality at all and more of a holographic experience, a simulated one, like you said, and you can get into what we said would have been an occupant of that time, which is just a simulation at a level? Or is it this idea that you did animate that character in that time for a minute? And is this what some of the cases of mental hysteria or something like this are, where someone hops into a body? It's not that their body transferred to the time, it's that their consciousness swapped with the consciousness of someone in that time in their body. So they took over the avatar, sort of like you were talking about things that can just hop in the ride if nobody's paying attention. And who knows what was going on situationally with those guys. But now you're walking around in this 1800s. You may have been classified as somebody that went nuts if you didn't know what was going on, or people that got stuck there, let's say, or something. It's just interesting to think about.
Yep. And if you think maybe this is what actual time travel is, and if it's reacting or interacting with you when you do that, is that changing the past? Maybe that's where Mandela effects come from.
And that's true too. If you're moving the hand around and you go nuts, but you transfer to the body of some mayor back in the town in Chicago at some important time in history, and then you just went nuts, that mayor got locked up, and then you affected time because you just hopped into this body, you took it over Freaky Friday style, but didn't, mean to, but you fucked it all up. And then, maybe the Nazis come over and now we're all speaking German. Thanks a lot.
Hey, that was a great show, though, The Man in the High Castle, where it showed if the Axis powers had won World War II, what it might look like.
Interesting.
Great idea. It's terrifying, but it was a great idea.
Yeah, fun thought experiment.
So Dirk leans pretty heavily into the idea that certain locations act like weak spots. So energy structures or vortexes, dimensional doorways, call them what you want. These spots fluctuate. They're kind of unstable, and once in a while, a human nervous system wanders into just the right frequency to interact with them. Most of the time, nothing happens. Sometimes people feel dizzy, sometimes euphoric. Occasionally, they fear pure terror, the kind that doesn't come from thought, but from the body itself. Like every cell is screaming, "You don't belong here! Get the fuck out!"
Man, imagine that. Like they talk about people rejecting implants and things like that, right? You get a hip or something like that and your body tries to reject it. But imagine that the body knows that the soul that's occupying it right now shouldn't be there, and it starts to fight to repel it as if it's getting a splinter out of itself or something.
Yeah, maybe that's what DMT is. It's like astral anti-rejection medicine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's something that keeps on coming up in these stories. The fear isn't just psychological, it's instinctive, as if crossing one more step might mean you don't come back. And we covered that on the last time, is what happens to the people who don't come back.
Right.
So this brings us to the actual stories themselves. And this is where he stops being theoretical and starts getting very specific about these. He doesn't just summarize folklore either. He's collecting these firsthand accounts, so Reddit posts, podcast interviews, witness statements, people who in many cases didn't even know this was a thing until years later. And something that becomes pretty obvious almost immediately is that these people aren't telling fun ghost stories. They're like a lot of, especially with the UFO culture, they're confused or embarrassed about it. Some of them waited years before saying anything because they were afraid of being labeled crazy, and others only shared them because someone else finally described the same thing happening to them. And you'll see this pattern again and again as we go on. They weren't looking for the past. It's almost like the past found them.
Oh, man.
So in this next part, we're going to go into one of the crazier cases in his entire collection. It's the Oregon Vortex. And I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with the Oregon Vortex. I've definitely heard of it. And if you want to look more into it, there's videos on YouTube. I'm sure there's whole podcasts about just the Oregon Vortex. And there's a lot of skepticism, like everything else, saying it's just optical illusions, or it's, the way the architecture of these the little shack that's there. But
yeah, it's swamp gas and all that.
Oh yeah, weather balloons.
Right.
So before we even go into the time slip aspect, the Oregon Vortex is already kind of a headache for skeptics, and that's important. This isn't a place that became strange after one wild story. It was strange first, and then the stories piled on. So this is near Gold Hill, Oregon, and has been weird long enough that people stopped arguing about whether something odd was happening, and they started arguing why something odd is happening. Visitors, and it's a tourist attraction, so people are always going there and taking tours and pictures and all that stuff. There's actually a dude I was watching on YouTube that runs the tours of this place and shows everybody all the weird anomalies.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's things like people appearing to grow taller and shorter depending on where they stand, objects that roll uphill, or at least that's what it looks like. Plumb bobs don't hang straight. Compasses are all out of whack. Depth perception feels off in a way that's hard to describe unless you're actually there. There's even one where there's a kind of a wonky old broom, and it was standing up straight, like balanced, but it was sideways.
Is this the house?
The floor was, yes.
That they built, you'll stand there and like lean, and then everybody's leaning, and then they set a ball down and it rolls uphill, and this V contraption made out of wood and all that stuff. It looks fun. You should check it out.
Like I said, the skeptical explanation is it's optical illusions caused by the slanted structures, all these weird architecture. And to be fair, that explanation actually works for some of what they experience, especially around the tilted house of mystery. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
So because your brain expects verticals and horizontals and doesn't get them, it panics. Your limbic brain panics.
Yeah.
But the part the skeptics kind of gloss over is the anomalies extend outside the actual buildings. And that's where Mr. John Litster comes in. Litster wasn't some roadside attraction guy. He was a geologist, a mining engineer, and a physicist who stumbled onto this site in the early 1900s and spent decades mapping it obsessively. He identified what he believed was a roughly spherical energy field, not a funnel or a doorway, but kind of a bubble, half above ground, half below. So think like a dome on top and a dome below. So you're in the middle of this sphere.
Like Terminator.
Yeah. So he built platforms, benches, markers, and reference points specifically to test this. He wasn't guessing either. He was comparing repeatable measurements over time. And one of the strangest things he noticed was that the field seemed to shift, and not dramatically and not daily, just subtly enough that long-term familiarity mattered, because he was measuring all this stuff.
Sure.
That detail is pretty crucial because it sets up why Nick Nelson's experience is so disturbing. So Nelson wasn't a tourist. He wasn't impressed by rolling balls or height illusions. He was a caretaker who knew the site the way a sailor knows a harbor. He knew which trees blocked which lines of sight. He knew how compasses behaved in specific spots, and he knew what normal weird looked like. If that's a thing, normal weird.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So he went on a hike this morning, or this one particular morning. He was half on autopilot, all alone, and it wasn't like a mystical curiosity, just routine, going about a hike. And then something goes wrong. The first thing to break isn't vision. It's a word that came up before, proprioception.
Proprioception.
Remember that word?
Yes. It's one's awareness of their limbs in space, right?
Yes. I had to pull it up again just to make sure I remembered, but it is the hidden sixth sense that allows the brain to perceive the body's position, movement, and force in 3D space without using vision. And it says, at least this overview says, driven by receptors in muscles, joints, and tendons. It enables things like automatic coordination, your balance, motor control, like walking without looking at your feet, automatic
handy.
type stuff.
Yeah. It's like, look at this. My hand's over there. I'm not even looking at it.
Yeah.
That's
it is.
Proprioception. It's on point.
So his body suddenly wants to fall uphill. And that's not an illusion. That's the inner ear and balance system misfiring in a way that triggers instant alarm. a kind of alarm that evolution put there for cliffs and predators. And skeptics like to talk about suggestion, but suggestion doesn't explain why his body reacts before his mind has time to label anything strange. Then comes this visual anomaly Nick sees. The platform that should be hidden by a massive Douglas fir is suddenly visible. Not partially, but very clearly. And this is where optical illusion really starts to kind of fall apart. Trees don't politely move out of the way because your brain is confused.
Yeah.
The geometry either works or it doesn't, and Nick knows it doesn't. And then comes the weird emotional part. This is one of the most consistent features across time slip cases. The fear isn't proportional to the stimulus. There's no threat visible. There's no identifiable danger.
Oh, yeah.
But he's still got this terror. And I think it was the Versailles case with the two biddies that we talked about.
That's right, the biddies.
They just had that weird, uneasy feeling for no reason.
Right. That is an interesting thing to point out. You're not in any danger immediately. It's, again, like an unsettling, like you're tuned to a frequency you shouldn't be, or in a body that's not yours, or something interesting like that.
Right. And that's where that proprioception comes in. It's just your instinctive knowing that you're in the wrong spot.
Like, oh, not supposed to be here.
And Nick, Mr. Nelson here, calls it body fear. And that phrase matters because he says his intellect keeps functioning. He observes clothing details. He's tracking distances and he remembers the sequence. But his nervous system is convinced he's standing on the edge of something lethal. But then a man appears.
Okay. What if this is like some sort of time slip to where right there in that spot, not only did something horrible happen, maybe, but that's a cliff in another dimension. You know what I mean? It looks like it's a normal area for you, but in some time it was another cliff, even though not visible. Maybe is the emotion. Is that another sense that we can add to this? It doesn't need to be any of the other types. Maybe there's a type -1 where you feel fucking weird, but everything looks pretty normal.
Yeah, we talked about that too with the way that the ground changes over time, and maybe that's why sometimes ghosts are halfway
a little lower
in the ground
because
the ground was lower back then.
Right. Maybe there was some high point there. Maybe it's just an interesting thing to just be overwhelmed with that feeling right there. Again, maybe something horrible happened there.
More than likely. So skeptics sometimes try to frame the man appearing as a hallucination induced by stress or expectation, but again, the context doesn't cooperate. Nelson wasn't expecting anything, and the figure doesn't behave like a projection. He's engaged in kind of a parallel task. He's using a compass, standing in a place that makes sense for him, for this guy that shows up.
Right. If anything, he expected things to be normal, and they defied his expectations when they weren't.
Yeah, and plus that mixed with his weird emotional state that all of a sudden happened,
Exactly.
And the clothing, of course, is period specific, but it wasn't this theatrical, over-the-top thing, just a wool coat, leather boots, walking stick, this practical for the time type of getup that he's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't a ghost wearing Victorian cosplay. It's a working man in a field. And then there's snow. And this wrecks a lot of easy explanations too, because he knows the temperature, Mr. Nelson here. He's been outside all morning. Snow on the roof isn't symbolic or anything. It's environmental. It relies on entirely different seasonal context overlapping the present that he's apparently experiencing.
Yeah, that's the thing. You time slip, but not even to the same season, the same time of year. You time slip to another season.
Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, and that would make sense depending, I guess, on where you're slipping to.
Sure. I mean, there's no guarantee you're going to slip to something like we talked about with the compass. Maybe you're slipping to some other reality where north is to your left instead of where you were going, which is facing forward, which is north in your world.
Yeah. And then he drops his compass and catches it midair. And I don't, for some reason, I think I left this part. I accidentally deleted a section of my notes, I think. Anyway, it had something to do with his body thought he was in an emergency. So then he sees other things like the two shacks start overlapping and the distance starts warping. And these are a lot of the things that are reported in this Oregon Vortex is that distances seem off. And again, it could be optical illusions according to the skeptics, but it's weird warping, like the sensation of being enormous, like you feel enormous. It's almost like an Alice in Wonderland thing.
Sure, yeah.
Or you feel real small, or...
I wonder if they got surveyors out there, what they would say. These folks who map the land and can show mathematical context for their reasons for sight lines and things like that. And then if it's consistent.
Yeah. And so he's coherent this whole time. Again, there's no cognitive like fragmentation or anything. He's just watching all of this happen in real time. And then all of a sudden, right up to his ear, he hears, "Oh, Jesus." And it wasn't this echoing, like mystical sound and not booming. It was just a quiet human really close to his ear.
Like startled?
Yeah, which is funny because it doesn't really say where that comes from. But if he was actually slipping, then it was somebody noticed him
else.
And went, "What the fuck is this?"
Now it's a class 3, right? Where they can hear you and you can hear them. Wow. Because a lot of sound is not associated with these. And so if you hear something like Jesus, because you just blipped into somebody else's hike, yeah, that's pretty jarring.
So if this was just an internal hallucination, why would this be such a mundane phrase? Or, why wouldn't it be something symbolic? Why not just silence? Yeah, because if he was making this up or if it was a hallucination, you'd think it would be something grander or floofier, like the channelers, like, "Oh, love and light."
Right. And the other stories with with that little girl who saw a bunch of stuff in the bombed out city, it was a lot of elaborate stuff. Folks kept popping in, but there was no sound associated with it whatsoever. So then again, the fact that there's sound at all was very interesting on this.
Yeah. And I'll try to link to this specific story too. So the simplest explanation and the most disturbing, of course, is the one Nelson, I think he subscribes to this, that somebody else was just as shocked to see him.
Yes.
And
you're in somebody else's ghost story. You're a ghost in somebody else's story. That's crazy.
That'd be fun to look up ghost stories from whatever time period that was and see
he
if
was wearing a
ran
Warped Tour
into
t-shirt.
Some futuristic guy wearing very strange clothing indeed.
Sneakers, he said.
So now we're not talking about somebody witnessing the past like a recording, like we talked about earlier. We're talking about two observers briefly occupying the same coordinates from different temporal landmarks, I guess.
And that could get dangerous. What if you time slip into somebody else's body, like physical, where they're occupying in space? Is that possible? Now you're just a conjoined twin, like a quado kind of thing.
Some weird Philadelphia experiment type stuff.
Exactly, yes.
If decades earlier he had an experience where the woods warped, the shack duplicated, and a massive vibrating human figure appeared where none should exist, would you publish that? And skeptics often ask, why aren't there more cases like this? The better question might be, how many people decided never to talk about it again?
Yes, or came back at all.
Yeah, Nelson himself almost didn't talk about it again. And one final skeptical point deserves respect. Could this have been psychological? And everybody always goes, it's all in your head, of course.
Maybe.
Dissociative episode, possibly?
Maybe.
But psychology alone doesn't explain the precise environmental inconsistencies like the snow, the apparent mutual recognition of these, two people.
Yeah.
And the identical fear response described in unrelated cases elsewhere. The Oregon Vortex case doesn't prove time slips, of course, and Mr. Dirk here never claims it does. What it proves is something a little harder to dismiss, that some locations behave as if the boundary between then and now is unstable. And once in a great while, two people on opposite sides of that boundary notice each other. And when that happens, they both have kind of the same reaction, the fear, not curiosity, just fear. Which suggests that whatever's happening there isn't meant to be navigated, but brushed against accidentally, like touching a live wire you didn't know was exposed. And that's why the Oregon Vortex sits right at the heart of this collection of stories.
How wild.
Then we go to ordinary places, but with totally unordinary glitches. One of the things I really like about how Dirk structures this is that after dropping that bananas Oregon Vortex case, he doesn't immediately try to one-up it with something flashier. Instead, he does something smarter and a little creepier. He takes us somewhere boring. There's no vortex in here, or mystery house, or ancient ruins, just everyday life. And this is the school that wasn't there anymore.
All right.
What makes this case a little more unsettling isn't because of the spectacle of it. It's how unremarkable it is while it's happening. Like we said, no vortex or anything like that. Just a man having what feels like a completely normal, almost forgettable afternoon. And that seemed to be common. I think it was in maybe the time slips by that other guy.
Yep, where it's a day like any other.
Absolutely boring, normal afternoon is when these things seem to happen.
Yeah.
It's almost like it catches you off guard intentionally,
Exactly.
So this guy had just gotten word that his paternal twin has been in a serious accident and not expected to live. And that by itself will put you in a weird headspace, obviously.
Yeah.
Twins are already kind of weird. Everybody knows that. No offense to the twins, but y'all are a little weird.
Shout out, but you're weird.
So he rushes home and his brother is in a coma. And the family's kind of doing a rotational shift in the hospital, sitting, watching, waiting, which is the worst when you're doing that. I mean, the days get blurry. The time just gets weird in itself.
Yeah, just T's and P's.
You're like absolutely exhausted, but also wired because you're thinking about, what's going to happen. And
yeah, it's a very anxious state.
One of the days when he's not on his shift waiting at the hospital, he wanders next door to his old junior high school. And that's a little important because it's right next door. This isn't some long drive or a nostalgic, road trip or anything. It's right there, right in the geography of his childhood. Important formative years, routines, sitting in classrooms, walking these hallways hundreds of times.
A lot of memories.
He sits on the steps of this school, and that alone should tell you that the building is physically there, present. It's physically present, right? There's steps, there's the entrance to the school, and he's not questioning it. Why would he? He starts reminiscing old days, old memories. Again, perfectly normal behavior for someone under this emotional strain.
Mm-hmm.
He even thinks about going inside, maybe wandering the halls, being nostalgic, but he doesn't. And why? Because he remembers seeing recent news reports about a possible child molester hanging out around the playgrounds there.
Oh.
And that's, another mundane detail, but it sets the scene firmly in his modern awareness of where he's at. This isn't someone lost in some reverie or daydream. He's just making a rational present day safety calculation. So he decides it's not worth the risk to do that. So he stays outside. Then the bell rings, and this is where it goes off the rails a bit. Kids start coming out. Parents arrive to pick up the kids, but of course the cars aren't right. They're 1950s era vehicles.
Whoa, yeah.
Not old cars or classic looking. He recognized them very specifically as mid-century models, the kinds of cars that belonged to his childhood era, not the present day he was apparently in right now. And everything about it seems right. Like the timing is right. The behavior of everybody, the pickup time just goes as it's supposed to. And the weird thing is that nothing alarms him about this. He doesn't feel fear in this situation. He's not even confused. He just watches it and feels that it's normal enough that he leaves afterwards and goes home. So if this were a hallucination, you'd expect what? Confusion, distortion, something that feels wrong. But this one didn't show itself as strange. It just kind of slides under the radar.
Well, he may have been just so overwhelmed with grief that grief feeling couldn't touch what he was already feeling. Maybe the sadness is only there if you're sensitive to it.
Overrode it?
Yeah, overrid it. Yeah.
Is it overrid or overrode?
It's overrid it now. I don't give a shit. It's overrid. I love it.
Full. Full. Aluminum full. And casually, later at home, his mother asks him what he's been doing. So he just mentions sitting on the steps of his old junior high, thinking about the past and watching school let out. And she just shuts that down immediately. And she says, that's impossible. The school was torn down 2 years ago. Gone.
Dun, dun, dun.
So no steps, no building, no entrance. And so he didn't imagine being there. He physically occupied a space that should not exist.
So when people drove by, they saw him sitting 4 feet off the ground, just in a squat position on what used to be stairs that weren't there anymore, but he was just floating in a field.
Doing like a weird wall sit.
Yeah.
Just floating.
Sky shitting.
So unlike some of the other stories, there's no ambiguity here. This isn't, I thought I saw something. This is the location that had been erased from the present. What's especially creepy is what didn't happen. That no one noticed him, no one interacted with him, and no one said, hey, who's that guy randomly sitting in the air over there?
Ooh, so he kind of disappeared into the time. So even when he felt like he was sitting in somewhere that a time was going over, he was transported to that time then in this case and removed from the time where he would have been visible at all. Or is it because you interact, other people's ability to see you? There's sort of some realm, maybe, I don't want to say effect, but that if something like that is happening to you, you just aren't visible to anyone else around you. It's almost like a shutoff, like an automatic thing.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so many
teleported?
thoughts. Right. Did he go there? Like where the smell's different, all that kind of stuff. Was it even the same time of day where school would have been picked up at?
Well, that's the thing, is that he says that everything was totally normal. That's the weirdness about it, is that everything was perfectly normal. Like he just wandered into this space, all these things happen, and he's like, oh, that's neat. Goes home and then realizes it was torn down 2 years ago.
Because even then, are you looking down at your hands going, oh, these are my little hands. I'm now in my little body. Like, how much awareness do you like self-check yourself? Or are you like, oh, shit, what shirt am I wearing? You know, oh,
that's the thing about this one, is that he didn't even think to do that because everything was so normal. He didn't notice anything off.
Exactly. Yeah. Damn. And then that's the thing, too. You're putting almost a state not to question it, not to take pictures, not to get your phone out in some of these cases of really weird shit.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So, but yeah, he was effectively invisible.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't an observer allowed to witness a routine moment in the past. Or no, he was allowed to, but didn't participate. And of course, the timing of all this is during his emotional distress, this whole family crisis, and the shifts in the hospital. He's just exhausted.
Yeah.
So he wasn't disassociated or unconscious. He's just psychologically permeable, I guess.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And Dirk doesn't push any kind of explanation here. This isn't a vortex. Again, this is not an ancient ritual site, like a mound or a burial ground or anything like that.
How old was the school, though? We need history on the school, because I had a guy on last show, and he talked about that a lot of times what they'll do when they're building or put up new schools, even to this day, is do rituals on the grounds themselves and either build them over really interesting sacred places. Sometimes it's, again, why those old buildings may have been there and then apprehended to turn it into something else. Or you got like what's going on underneath the ground under there. But also, again, this idea of, and it's sick and disgusting, but this guy talked about that they put sigils underneath playgrounds and shit. So when kids are there, it's like collecting their energy. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Public school system. Yeah, again, you dodged a pretty big bullet. But it's, again, interesting what happens on school grounds, especially. There's something about them. And so, yes, there could be fuckery afoot in just the physical grounds because it was a school.
And that's kind of what, it's a completely ordinary place, but it's saturated with repeated human activity, these decades of the schedules, the bells, routines, all the, childhood emotions, boredom, anxiety,
puberty, sure.
Even childhood trauma, unfortunately,
sure.
Just layered over each other day after day after day. And if the Akashic record idea holds any water at all, this is exactly the kind of place where the residue would accumulate.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I could see that.
And again, like we said, the scene he sees isn't dramatic. There's no tragedy or fire or crime or just dismissal of school.
When is it just so traumatic that you're so sensitive to it? Almost like an action movie is going to catch your attention more than some chick flick when you walk by a movie theater. Like, are all moments stored? It's just that one had a lot of impact, or those moments weigh a lot, and so therefore they're accessible more, or they catch your eye more.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. It didn't seem like he had a choice either. It just kind of was like, here's the thing you get to see today.
Yeah, it's like grief offered him sort of a little break from everything.
And this is where he argues that maybe there is this Akashic record of everything being recorded. Maybe it's not just the emotionally charged events, because they say that with the stone tape theory, things like I said, Gettysburg or any of these high impact things, like those are recorded and imprinted on there. But maybe if it's the Akashic idea, then maybe just the routine itself leaves an imprint when it's repeated enough times.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be horrific for it to exist. And that's a great point that he's making. We say Gettysburg and things like that because they were battlefields. And so therefore we associate it with trauma. And then therefore, that's why. We like to use that as a reason why something phenomenal could be there. It's more comforting, I suppose, than the idea that it could just be any old where for any old time, any old reason.
I know. And that's what makes it the high strangeness of it, is because if you were making up a story about time slipping or some weird experience, I guess if you wanted to make it more believable, it would be mundane, but really it's a boring thing that happened. It's just the circumstances around it that are bizarre.
But I like that that's why he brought it up and you included it, is because it is so innocuous that makes it important, is because it's not a Marie Antoinette or all these characters gathered in a really freaky time slip experience. It's something very innocuous and almost like a memory, but like a lived memory from that time. But again, not even a traumatic or exceptional one, just a very basic, but maybe again, some of those simple moments in life are the best. And maybe that's what he was shown in that.
Well, and a lot of them are mundane, like the whatever street that was in Liverpool, I believe it was, where Bond Street, maybe.
Oh, yes, the bookstore.
Yeah, where
Yes, it's Bond
nothing
Street.
crazy happened. He just flipped into another time, and then it just went away just as quick. Like
Right.
it wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the story itself is nuts, but not what was happening.
That's the idea. You just be walking along. Oh, I'm in this time now.
So then we get to a little more intimate kind of slips, the ones where people don't just see the past, but become part of it. So there's a woman living in a battered women's shelter in Old Town, Winchester, Virginia, already a place that's soaked in history. She's walking past an old Ford-era building, which is now an antique shop. She's kind of emotionally vulnerable, obviously coming from a battered shelter.
Mhm.
She's displaced, probably always on edge. And then she feels the air shiver. And that's the word she uses. She knows her physical body is still in the present. She's not blacking out, but her vision shifts. The street becomes colonial America. Why does it always seem to go back to colonial?
What's up with that?
So horses, carriages, market sounds, all these normal things
Clip-clopping, sure.
for that time. When she looks into the shop window, she isn't wearing modern clothes anymore. She's wearing a period dress.
But it was her body?
Different hair, thinner body. And again, not observing, she's inhabiting that time period.
Oh.
And it only lasts a few minutes, then it snaps back. No fanfare, no angels or anything, just gone. And she later posts about it online because she doesn't know what else to do with it. So obviously you go to the internet, duh. And that's another recurring theme here, is that people share these experiences not to convince anyone, but because they need to put them somewhere. And a reply comes in almost immediately. Another person walking through woods near a remote dorm felt the world tilt and suddenly sees Native Americans running through the trees, shouting, just like hunting, as if he's walked through the middle of a moment that has nothing to do with him. Then it's over. So,
Wow.
And he's not even claiming ancestry or anything. Or like,
Yeah.
oh, my Native American spirit guide. He's just saying, this happened. I don't know what else to do with it.
Did any of them recognize him? Did he mention that? Or they just ran past as if he
No, it
wasn't
was
there?
just some quick thing, and that was it.
Wow.
These are the ones that get me, are these mundane ones.
What do you do? Do you go home? You know, if you're walking in the woods, you see that. Do you just go home after that, or you keep going?
Probably. Go home,
Yeah.
take a shower, take a nap, and then just
Call it a
restart your day.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Some of the creepiest stories aren't big or dramatic like that. They're just quiet little nothingness.
Yeah.
This guy is walking from his living room to the kitchen. He glances into the bedroom as he passes. In a room he sees, it's a room he sees every day, except this time it's not his bedroom. It's an 1800s bedroom. There's old boots neatly tucked under the bed. There's a wash basin, a water pitcher, the bedding that looks handmade, like that quilt look.
Oh, yeah, quality.
Yeah. Furniture that belongs in a museum, not his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even step inside. He just looks. And even that brief glance feels stretched, like time slows down just enough to let the details register. And then it's gone. Same walls, same room, same life. There's no explanation, no repeat of this. If you've ever had a moment like that where something is wrong for just long enough to unsettle you, then you know how badly that would stick with you.
Yes.
Which is why people need somewhere to go and tell these stories, because they're like, it only matters to me. It's like we always say, talking about dreams. Only you really know how that felt and why that dream stuck with you, even though it seems mundane. But I can tell you right now, if I walked past my bedroom and saw that for long enough to register all those details, it'd be very unsettling.
Very unsettling. And now I'm thinking of the guy who takes the Berenstain Bears book and walks into his bedroom and it changes to Berenstein Bears. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
So he back and forth through the threshold of his door, and objects change to what we would have called the Mandela effect's earlier timeline. The one where Mandela died in prison. Very interesting.
I've seen that video, but I think I saw that video before AI was real prominent, but if anybody knows what I'm talking about, it is a weird video, but it's like hard to tell if things like that are, messed with in some way, but
Sure. Yeah.
it is weird. And that whole Mandela effect of the Berenstein Bears was the first one I ever heard of. And I could swear to all the gods on a stack of Bibles that it was Berenstein.
Yes, with an E. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. Even I'll have to get into Mandela effects sometime because there's something interesting going on there for sure. And the parallels are wild. And they just keep coming. They're deeper and deeper every time we look at it.
I think I told you about that one. I might have mentioned it on the show too, but the biggest one I noticed myself was that I could swear that Thanksgiving was the third Thursday of November.
Yes.
My whole life.
Yep. There's some really interesting ones that'll pull you off the wall about it. And that's one. The cornucopia was another one. The monocle is a great one. The dash between kit and cat's a great one. You've just got so many interesting things. And the fact that they are simply pop culture or logos or something very innocuous. Movies oftentimes as well. And that one trips me out. All the mirror on the wall. You've got, and then other folks who will then repeat that exact miss thing that never existed. And why would they, right? Like Tommy Boy and cartoons will do a lot of that. Like, you love me, you really love me, those kind of things. You like me, you really like me, the Sally Field deal. And then you had Animaniacs that did it. So really interesting stuff. And then you have all those folks, like on Tommy Boy is my favorite example. You've got all that set, crew, writers, everybody. How many takes did it take for them to do that one scene and no one corrected him? That it's not that line from Star Wars. It's now I am your father, not no. Yeah.
Oh, no, not
No,
Luke.
I am your father. Yep.
Yeah.
Luke, I am your father. Right.
Yeah. And
weird.
A lot of those are, attributed to misremembering. And yeah, I'm sure that's a lot of those are. But there's some of them, like the cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom. That I wore those every day in the 90s.
Yes,
like,
those were underwear, man.
100% had a cornucopia on it. And I've seen a couple of videos of people finding their old like t-shirts or underwear, and it's there. The weirdest part is that Fruit of the Loom refuses to acknowledge it was ever on there. They even went so far as to make a post that showed all their logos over the years since they were a company, and none of them have the cornucopia. And it's like, okay, you're just messing with us now, right? Because a lot of people remember it being there. Why would something so random, why would you lie about that or try to hide it,
Yes. Fruity Loops, Looney Tunes, you have the way that they're spelled, all of those things, like they're phonetically the same, but they're changed, the spelling of it changed to something ridiculous. When they were Tunes, Toons, which makes sense. Now it's Tunes, which is weird. It's things like that where they'll change little things, but I don't know what it does. And like I said, I know we spent a little time on it here, but we have got to get into that sometime because it's fascinating. It's just one of those things. You're like, what? Why?
Just why? Again, why?
Why?
So now we're in Scotland, walking along a disused railway line. It's these couple kids. They've done this dozens of times. The station ahead is abandoned, the roof half gone, and it's been empty for years. And they play there sometimes. But this time, as they come out of a tunnel, the station is like alive. Oh. There's smoke rising from the chimney. The doors open. This man with a thick Victorian mustache pulls back a curtain and looks straight at them. And he wasn't ghostly or translucent. It's just a guy doing things in his own time.
With a sick wind broom, sure.
And these kids don't bother to investigate. They just panic and run. And later when they pass by again from above, standing on a bridge, the station is derelict again, just empty and broken. And the comment under, I guess there's a video of this, just says, "We all saw it." And so that's another pattern worth noting is multiple witnesses, especially children who don't really have this cultural mindset yet for time slips. Mm-hmm. It's just something they saw again.
Just reporting it, call it like they see it.
And then there's New York. A woman is walking near Central Park, turns down a normal cross street, not an alley, not somewhere sketchy, and just takes one step and everything vanishes. No buildings, no cars, no city noise, nothing. It's just trees, a field. There's a dirt road with these deep ruts in it, a low, dark brown house with a fence, and a horse-drawn buckboard creaking down the road under the weight of a bunch of wooden crates that are on the back of it. Huh. So she's standing in dirt, and then guess what happens? The fear hits.
Oh.
And not the fear of the scene she's seeing. She's terrified of being trapped. And not speaking the right way or being institutionalized.
Oh, see?
Because she's in that. Yeah.
You have this recognition of shit. How am I going to survive here? I don't blend in. I'm going to be burned as a witch or something.
Yeah. And so she does the only thing that makes sense. She walks backwards. So she takes a step back and instantly she's back on Fifth Avenue. The traffic noise, the people. A man bumps into her because she's moving the wrong way.
Get out of here.
So she apologizes and everything looks normal. She gets into a cab but leaves the city as fast as she can. And even though she calls it fascinating, she also calls it terrifying. Because once you realize that the world can do that, even once, the floor doesn't quite feel as solid anymore.
Yes. This is psychedelics for me. It just did something in me that was like, oh, okay, things are just not what they seem. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we move on to this section in his little collection, Dirk's collection of stories. The pattern is pretty hard to ignore. These experiences don't just cluster around history, they cluster around emotionally charged states in places that were already important long before we showed up with cameras and backpacks. Because now we're not talking about suburbs or schools or city streets anymore. We're talking about places that were built on purpose. This one stands out. It's one of the cleanest modern Akashic bleed-through cases I've ever come across because it checks almost every box without trying to be dramatic. So a family visits Tikal, the ancient Mayan city in Guatemala. It's a high tourist season. There's crowds everywhere. Nothing spooky particularly in the air, just the heat, ruins, and of course, people snapping photos. Around lunchtime, they sit down near a small, unremarkable ruin, not one of the famous temples and not a ceremonial structure or anything like that, just this modest building at ground level, the kind most people would walk past without looking at it twice. The guy that's telling the story finishes eating quickly and asks if anyone wants to look inside. Only their aunt agrees. Everyone else stays outside. So inside, they walk through a few small doorways, nothing unusual at first. Then they realize something's off, and it's the Oz effect. It's too quiet, and it says not
quiet.
Yes, not a peaceful quiet, a wrong quiet. So no tourists or footsteps, no echoing voices coming through the stones or anything, just silence. They get nervous and decide to head back. As they pass through one of the doorways, they see something that absolutely was not there a moment ago. A painting, and it was fresh. It wasn't an old, museum piece. It was like this fresh painting, and it shows people standing around standing and sitting around a plaza. It was like an ancient Mayan market scene. The colors are vibrant and very recently applied. Like you can still see the brushstrokes.
That's wild, man. Imagine that. That's cool because you don't hear many time slips in South American Mayan temples. This is great,
and you'd think you would actually.
Yeah, actually, you would.
Of all places, yeah. So then as they're staring at this random painting that popped up, they realize the entire room has changed. The walls are no longer this washed out gray stone. They're a deep vivid red. Take two. Vivid red. And it's painted. So it's painted a deep vivid red. The place looks inhabited. It looks maintained and like in use. Damn. And then they hear voices, a lot of them. It's a language they don't understand, but it's clearly humans. Just a casual like conversation style thing they're hearing. Well, it's like a crowd going about their daily business. If you can imagine that in ancient Maya.
A lot of clicks and stuff probably, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's Africa, actually.
I don't know. They probably had some clicks.
And neither one of these two people panic. They don't run or anything. They don't shout. They don't even really say anything. They slip into what is described as a trance-like state. So that's probably important. Mm-hmm. Time seems to stretch and collapse at the same time. The seconds feel like hours, but also the inverse. Hours feel like seconds. So it's that in-betweenus. I think I've described that to you before, where it was like, it could have been 1,000 years. It also could have been like a half second.
Right.
That's what it feels like to these guys or people. So they just stand there and staring and listening. Eventually, one of them snaps out of it and says something like, we should go back to the family. And just like that, they leave. So they come outside and their family's like, where have you been? They've been gone a half hour. And they're both like just buzzing, just talking over each other, insisting everybody should come see what they just saw.
Yeah.
And they know exactly how to get back to this red room, except they can't find it, of course. They retrace every step, every doorway, everything. The room's just gone. And there is a room that sort of matches the structure, but it's gray and old and weathered looking. On one wall, there's the faintest trace of what might have been a painting, almost completely eroded away. That's it.
But not in the spot the guys remembered?
Well, they said it's a room that sort of matches what they remember that room to look like, but it just looks so much different.
Yeah, it's odd too, though, to think you could run by a wall that had been walled up and you know of a room that should be there. There should be a door right there. If you guys dig right there, there's this huge room with this badass painting right there.
Yeah. So the rest of the family just laughs it off and, it's your imagination. Mm-hmm. But the two that went in there, they do not. They still talked about it years later because both of them knew exactly what they saw. And what makes this case so strong is that it lines up perfectly with what archaeologists already know. Many ancient sites were deliberately built on specific energy locations like ley lines, Dousing groundwater intersections, geomagnetic anomalies, however you want to think about these energy lines.
Yeah.
And Dirk, he's not overreaching here. He's just pointing out the obvious that if any place on Earth was designed to interact with altered states of consciousness, it would probably be somewhere like Tikal.
Yes.
Can't argue. I mean, I think, is it Stonehenge and places like that are built on supposed ley lines or energy intersections?
Yeah, and I've heard that the Avebury Circle is a lot better than Stonehenge because Stonehenge has been torn down, rebuilt a bunch of times, concrete. It's the magic's kind of gone. It's more of a tourist trap so that keep people out of Avebury is what I've heard. Yeah, Avebury, the magic place. We should go.
I really want to go to Göbekli Tepe and see what that's all about.
All this shit. Let's check it all off. Plus members, let's get together. Everybody will do these group trips and we'll just fly around the world and see this cool shit with our own eyes. All right.
I just want to go there to see what it, for lack of a better word, what it feels like, and see if I'm not looking to time slip or anything. I'm actually okay with that. I'd rather just tell stories about that. But I want to go there to see if it feels different. Like especially the pyramids. Like, I don't think they let people anymore, but I'd love to go inside the pyramid and just see what it feels like in there.
You can go in there. Yeah, you can absolutely go in there. Let's check it out. We're there. Sure. You know the right people, you give the right amount of cash, it's all accessible, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a couple more stories here. There's a woman driving in Michigan at night with her 5-year-old daughter. Again, totally mundane. Mm-hmm. She's a little sleepy, focused on the road, and then bang, it's daylight. And it's people in 1800s clothing everywhere. There's a woman pushing an old-fashioned baby carriage, which is creepy. Those old-fashioned baby carriages.
Yeah, I don't care for that.
Super creepy.
I don't care for that.
It might just be from movies, but I think they're creepy.
Yep.
So she slams on the brakes, and she checks the car. She looks at her daughter. The inside of the vehicle hasn't changed, and she hasn't changed. Just the world outside the windows. And seconds later, it's gone again. Back to night, back to empty roads. And this almost, because she was like sleepy and kind of road hypnosis, it does make me think that she like dreamed for a half second. But again, that kind of a vivid thing, I don't know.
Maybe you're
chalk
tired.
It off as just a dream.
I'll go full devil's advocate and say like maybe a passing car, its lights were really bright and on and it flashed in her eyes and then she just had this vision, or maybe that triggered some sort of something either inside her in the area as well. And then she just had this ability to see or experience. But again, it could be pretty sleep induced. And then that's another thing too, putting folks in this fatigued state does trigger these kind of things. And experiments have been done, put them in that state first, and then we get to work. And it's interesting when stuff like that happens. The DMT, endogenous DMT within you, especially when you're fatigued and on long haul drives like that. Yeah. It's dangerous, man.
Well, I know that the hypnagogic state anyway, I've experienced this myself. Totally dead sober. Right before you go to sleep. I know everybody knows this, but you'll experience weird stuff. Yeah. Like it happens. I can hear music sometimes. It's like your brain's just like going between different channels, and maybe again that's what dreams are. Who knows?
It's passing all the channels so it can get to off mode.
Yeah. Another great one involves a woman riding on the top deck of a double-decker bus in London, and this is back in the 1950s. She's sitting there when suddenly she's not enclosed anymore. She is exposed to open air. She looks around. The bus is now a horse-drawn omnibus.
What? That she was on? Was she still on the second level of it? Did they have double-decker horse-drawn buses back then?
I don't know.
There she floating in the air, like 10 feet above the ground. Like there was nothing like that at that time.
That would
just now flying through the air that we knew of, right?
So yeah, the street again has shifted to early pre-Victorian London. Why does it always go back to this time period?
I don't know. It's so interesting.
And everyone around here is dressed like that. Long dresses, these frock coats, no modern noise, honks or beeps or people yelling the F word. So she panics and tries to talk to the woman sitting next to her, or women sitting next to her, and they don't respond, neither of them. And not rudely or dismissively, just nothing, like they don't hear her. And she can't really tell if they can see her either. But a few minutes later, she's back where she belongs, back on the bus, normal city. And she only tells a handful of people. Decades later, someone searches online and discovers entire archives of time slip accounts describing almost identical experiences. So it seems like a lot of these little hit it and quit it stories are really similar, where it's just a normal thing, couple seconds, maybe a couple minutes of this scene change, and then it just goes away and you're back to normal.
So bizarre. And this would make you question more than anything. Because then you're sitting here going, hang on, is reality that malleable? Can this just happen to me at any time now? Or did something happen to me and now I'm more susceptible to it? Like my radio now just can go wonky.
Yeah, like if you can do it once, are you more easily, I don't know, take overable?
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So by the time you're done reading all these little stories he compiled here, Dirk he's not trying to convince you of like a neat, tidy, put it in a box explanation. He's doing something way more old school and probably more honest than that, actually. He's saying, look at the pattern first, because when you step back from the individual stories, so from the Oregon Vortex thing to vanished schools, the colonial streets, the red room in the mine ruins, the hospital wards, all these weird stories, they stop feeling like random paranormal anecdotes and start feeling like variations on a singular like malfunction in, again, not ghosts or hallucinations, or I guess not time travel in the sci-fi sense. It's more like reality is briefly forgetting to, stay in its lane. It's just moving for a second and then going, oh shit, and going back.
And it's like there's an adjustment bureau that sort of comes in and goes, hey, we got a red alarm. This chick's in a red room in a Mayan temple she's not supposed to be in, fix it, right?
Great movie.
Solve it. And then there's like, oh shit. And then it just sort of shifts back. And maybe, you do take priority. Then also you think this idea of the veil being thin in some places, but also at some times. And again, is this sort of anticipation of great change in our realm? Is this part of it? Is this slipping, this sort of fracture of stability? Is that part of this?
It seems like is it a feature or a bug?
Right. That's the question right there. Is it supposed to be like this? Is it broken? Yeah.
One of the other things that stands out here is that most of these people aren't looking for an experience. They're not like a cultist doing ritual. They're not Crowley in the desert,
Right.
Yes. They're not trying to astral project or do any of this. And most of them don't even believe in this stuff. They're either tired or stressed or, emotionally drained, just distracted in general. And that's exactly the kind of state where the brain stops being rigid and starts being a little more porous.
Yeah, it accepts new things.
The flow state, maybe?
Yeah, you can accept new information there.
Now layer that on top of certain locations with these mental states, places with deep historical context or repeated human emotion or trauma or you name it, it seems to be that pattern. And his suggestion is that it starts to feel less wooey and a little more mechanical and not in a, magic type of way, just resonance. And that does seem to go back to a lot of things is frequency, resonance,
vibration, all of it.
So this is where the Akashic idea actually kind of keeps up with this, is not as a mystical library, but as kind of almost like informational residue. Like reality keeps this memory buffer, whether we want it to or not. Most of the time we can't access it, but under the right conditions, it just kind of leaks through. And sometimes, and this is the part that really messes with people, is the leak goes both ways. Like we said at the beginning, where Nick Nelson hears, "Oh, Jesus," whispered in his ear.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a passive recording. That was another human being reacting in real time from another time.
Yeah, seeing this dude blip into his, which is freaky.
Yeah, and that's kind of Charles Fort territory, too. I mean, he spent his entire career collecting things that shouldn't happen, but just do. And he didn't try to explain them away either. He treated them like error messages, data points from a system that didn't want to admit it was flawed, maybe.
Like Mandela effects.
Yeah. So, so it's just more like the present is thinner than we think, and maybe just things bleed through once in a while if you're in the right state, in the right spot. And you'd think a lot more of this would happen. And maybe it does, and we just don't hear about it because of the reasons we talked about, because people are just scared to. They think it was just a hallucination or they were just sleepy, who knows? It probably does happen more than we think.
Yeah, they don't want their spouse to leave them. They don't want their kids to get taken away from them because people think they're crazy. They don't want to lose their job. There's all sorts of reasons why folks would keep something like this, especially based on their programming. You and I are a little more flexible. If this happened to you or I couldn't shut up about it. Like, I'd be calling you immediately. But that's just different, right? You and I have worked through that bit of programming to where we feel comfortable enough to relay things we're actually seeing and experiencing. Not a lot of folks can say that, but I feel times like that, like what you articulate, it's similar to the missing time phenomenon, where now folks who weren't looking for it have something that they need to face in their life and maybe make some changes or ask some different questions. And this is a great way to get folks off of their stable path. This is a wonderful pattern interrupter, and I think it's perhaps provided by the realm. Like you said, is it a glitch or a feature? Either way, it produces change in people, which is perhaps the whole point.
Well, that's the weird thing about the way that he comes at these stories is that they're a lot quicker. They're less involved. They're detailed, but not in a complicated way. They're just,
right.
It's like something that clearly happened, but it was there and then it wasn't. And I don't know what else to say about it. And that's probably how I would tell a story like that if it happened to me. I'd just be like, I don't know what to make of this. This is what I saw. This is what happened. And then it stopped happening. Right?
Yep.
The end.
It was there. There were
doesn't make a great
horses.
book, but you get enough of them in one spot, it would make a great book.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. Just so bizarre. This realm is just fascinating and interesting, and I'm grateful that we can talk about stuff like that because it is a quick in and out. It's a little time slip's a great word for it. A little blip, a little glitch, a little nip slip. It's here and gone. It's
in, out, in, out.
Exactly. But just bizarre enough to get your attention. And then, like you said, maybe they're happening all the time, and then it would be a good thing also to bury a culture in its phone so it's not looking up, it's not looking around, and maybe these things are happening at either a higher rate or they're just around and folks just aren't looking. They're not watching.
Yep. So yeah, that was the document entitled Accidental Viewing of Past Scenes. I would call it accidental interacting sometimes with past scenes by, again, Dirk Gillabel. And this was from 2023, so relatively new little collection he put together. What have you got coming up in Plus, though?
Yeah, so in Plus, we are going to complete Project Bluebeam. Easily one of the most fun, ridiculous, no intellectual, stone unturned on this theory here. And it's just bizarre and fun. We're going to get to the fake alien invasion bit of it on this one. And we've gone over a lot of technology and the setup and just a little bit of history in the last Plus show that we did. So definitely sign up for Plus, guys, down in the show notes in the description down there. And you can get access to that and all the other cool things that we're doing as well. Inescapable is out and moving. If you'd like to get both shows for the price of one there through April 14th, and you can do so in the link below at their website. So we've just gone ahead and linked it for you there. Then we, like I said, have Bluebeam. It's going to be banger because we've got a lot of cool shit to talk about still with this thing. It's one of the craziest, most batshit ideas out there, and it's one of my favorites, honestly. It's deep, it's dark, but you can see how, number one, it's there to make you scared. And so you and I are talking about it so that we can relieve the fear of it and speak more openly to the disposition needed to walk into something like that. Because a lot of things are pointing to that something like that's possible in a lot of different ways. And then if you, as we're going through here, look at the technology that's available, where when in 1994, Sir J. Manasse, who wrote it, had no clue that any of that was available, but was writing on it as if it was true. Nobody at the time did. And now you and I, as in the last episode, are just sitting here checking off one after another. Yeah, they can do that. Yeah, they can do that. They got that now. Oh, yes. Starlink just threw up a bunch of new things. That would facilitate that need there. So we've got a lot more to cover in it, and I'm very excited to get to it. So again, guys, sign up below.
No, it's definitely one of my favorite, quote, conspiracy theorists. But as we know, or theories, as we know, though, a lot of these, if not the majority of them, are just spoiler alerts. So
it's got some stuff. And again, as you and I are going through it this time, because it's been a while, you pick it up, you blow the dust off of it, you go, let's see if anything in here has updated or has changed at all. And it's honestly, it seems that it's now more plausible for that thing than ever, which is again remarkable that it's a work from 94, a manifesto. Now we know that he's got paragraph long sentences and all that stuff. The man's not huge into periods, but we're getting through it, and it's very, very cool. So thank you again, and looking forward to that.
Fun time. If you've never heard of Project Bluebeam, definitely check out Plus and the cool stuff we're doing over there.
Definitely.
And if you are on Plus, stick around. We'll be back with your extension right after this break. And if you are not, we'll see you next Friday. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.